Welcome to the 8th episode of the Honey Pot Podcast for Sweet Conversations. I'm your host, Carmen Hendricks, and I took the lid off the pot today for an extraordinary guest, Tonya Franklin. Hi, Tonya.
Hi.
Now, before we get started, I want to make sure you all know how to find us. We are available on iTunes, SoundCloud, and YouTube, and all you have to do is search for Honey Pot Podcast. Now let's go ahead and introduce Tonya. A writer since the age of 13, Tonya Franklin has had a love for words ever since. Expression of her inquisitiveness through writing also became an outlet to overcome obstacles and circumstances for her throughout her life. In 2015, she took the leap of faith and became a published author, publishing her first book, Good Customer Service Tips for Entrepreneurs. Soon followed another book, and in February of 2017, she published her first Christian fiction work. Since then, she has expanded her I Speak to Empower brand, speaking on professional development as well as spiritual empowerment. She is currently working on 2 new works of nonfiction as well as Christian professional works. Welcome to the show, Tonya. We are so glad to have you.
Thank you, Carmen. Thank you.
So is there anything else that you would like to tell our viewers and listeners?
I am currently working on my first book series. The first book is already out, and I'm working on the companion book with it. I am looking to actually get involved in 2 different genres of writing. So that's going to be something that's different for me, a little bit out of my comfort zone. And that's pretty much it.
We are glad to have you here, and we hope that today starts the beginning of a great relationship and we have you back on the show. It would be so wonderful to see you. So let's get started and talk about some of today's news, and then let people get to know who you are and how you feel about current events. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So I want to talk about Umar, Burley, and Brent Matthews. Now, for those of you who don't know who they are, they were wrongly convicted on heroin charges and vehicular manslaughter. The feds were charged with planting evidence on them, and they were just recently released and had their convictions vacated. So this is a wonderful ending for them. In one of the interviews, Mr. Matthews was saying that he is excited that justice was working in his favor, but there are so many instances where that doesn't happen. So how do you feel about this situation?
I'm excited about them being released, but I'm also looking at the ramifications of them being convicted and being in prison, and it doesn't change the fact that their lives are no longer the same. And we really don't know what the outcome of this whole case is going to be. So I'm not going to get too excited about it now, because justice has not been completely served yet. And as far as the statement that was given by the judge that sat on this case, just a handshake and saying that you're sorry, it doesn't change that these men's lives have been forever changed, that their whole mentality, their whole perception and understanding and being comfortable in this country, that has not changed. That is, it's beyond words. And that the more that we as a nation, that we just take the blinders off and stop sugarcoating it and sweeping it under the rug and just hoping that it'll go away. We have to really get serious and advocate justice. And it doesn't matter what color we are, but to advocate justice.
I agree. It's very interesting because Umar Burley actually served 7 years on a 15-year sentence.
Right.
And I want to read what the Baltimore Sun wrote about his conviction. They said Umar Burley was free from prison in August, 7 years into a 15-year sentence, as prosecutors pursued allegations that Baltimore Police Sergeant Wayne Jenkins planted drugs in Burley's car following a deadly high-speed chase in 2010. Jenkins was arrested in March along with the rest of his squad and charged with robbing citizens and falsifying documents for years. So even though Mr. Burley and Mr. Matthews have been freed, think about all of the other people that were convicted, wrongly convicted, and put in jail. 7 years is a long time to be in jail.
Right.
And then aside from that, this resulted in a death.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You intentionally hit this man's car, start a high-speed chase, someone dies, and it just so happened to be the father of a fellow officer. So then he gets charged with vehicular manslaughter. It's an injustice that we really need to start looking at, because it's horrible that these things are happening. An 87-year-old man was killed because of the actions of an officer, and then someone else took the blame.
Right.
How can you forgive someone for that?
It's hard. It's hard. And you know, we see it time and time again where there are cops or officers that have gone rogue and they're not upholding the law. And it's kind of strange. It's kind of, you know, a strange fruit to where you have someone in a position that is to uphold the law and to make sure that others are upholding the law, and they're not doing it. And so it's kind of like, you know, where does the line of authority, where is it drawn? Where's that line of authority drawn to where you can't really tell me anything because you're breaking the law? You know, you're doing these things. And I was looking at some information on this particular case, and this particular officer and others that were with him, this is not the first time that they've done something of this nature.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just become magnified because of the gentleman that was killed. So it's really just been magnified and now all the covers are starting to come off. And to be honest, Carmen, I don't think that we've even seen the top of this case and what's really going on with these officers. And I believe that within the months to come, perhaps even the years to come, that we're really, really going to see some astonishing information and things that they have been doing behind the scenes to not only make officers look bad, but to make their department as well as their city.
Yes. And at this point, you know, now we need to really start looking at community. We used to have Officer Friendly, and
Right.
Officer Friendly was a part of the neighborhood. Officer Friendly knew everybody. Officer Friendly was the officer that everybody could go to, that they were not afraid of. And they've steered away from that. We need to get Officer Friendly back. You know, there was a time where the officers would go to school and, you know, the kids would say, I want to be a police officer. I remember that when I was a child, and that narrative has completely changed now.
Yes.
And so we need to start bringing empowerment back into the neighborhoods, and we need to really start looking at the way that we manage our officers. Because if you have an officer that knows what's going on in the neighborhood, that knows the people that are in the neighborhood, then I believe you will stop having all of these, I was fearing for my life officers shooting and killing people.
Mm-hmm.
Because they know the people in the neighborhood. So then instead of you pulling your gun, you may have to pull your baton. You may have to pull your taser, but you're not going to pull your gun saying you're fearing for your life, because you know these people and you know what they are capable of.
Right. I agree.
So that's my take on that. So now you started I speak to empower. Tell us what that means and how it can help others.
Well, it started actually as a brand, I'd say maybe a little bit over a year ago, maybe about a year and a half ago. I've been doing public speaking for about 30 years. And I know this may, for those that know me, that this may come as a shock, but I've always been a very shy person when it comes to getting in front of people and speaking. And I had to come into a place where I was confident, not only in just me speaking, but being comfortable with my message. And because of the journey that I went through to get to that particular point, I started coming in contact with other young ladies, other women who were traveling that same particular journey. I've worked with at-risk youth before. So in that, you see and hear all different types of things that they're dealing with their confidence, with them just being even comfortable with themselves. And so I decided that this was a critical point, a critical time to launch this particular brand so that I could be able to share my message with others and help others to come into the purpose of their own message.
So, speaking of empowerment, you wrote a book entitled Good Customer Service Tips for Entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
So, how did that come about? Did that come about because you were helping someone that you knew, you were providing some type of empowerment? How did that come about?
It came about from being in a number of social media groups, and there was a lot of talk about bad customer service. And the type of person that I am, I prefer to get both sides of the story and then seek for the truth. Because there's three sides to a story. My dad used to always tell me there's three sides. It's your side, their side, and then there's the truth. And so I started kind of doing some trolling and looking at some of the activity of some of these same people that were complaining about bad customer service with small entrepreneurs, small businesses. And some of the things that they were doing wasn't, producing good customer service on their end. So I decided that, I'm seeing so much of this, especially in our community, that there needs to be some type of guide that spells it out plain, not just only from the customer's perspective, not only from the entrepreneur's perspective, but also from the perspective of a vendor, as well as team members. So I wanted to encompass something that would speak to everybody that's in this circle that's called business.
Okay. Well, I agree with you on that because I have myself experienced some horrible customer service.
Mm-hmm.
And then also I've run into some people who they say that they have a business. They say that their business, like for instance, there's one lady who reached out to me about the podcast, and she really reached out to me under false pretense. She was just trying to sell. She didn't want to be a part of the podcast. She was just trying to sell to me. I don't have a problem with you reaching out to me to sell to me. I have a problem with you reaching out to me under false pretense. And then on top of that, she was supposed to send me some information that I never received. She was supposed to add me to a group that I was never added to. And so it made me think, if this is how you are handling a potential customer, now how are you handling your business? Because I go and I look at, I'm like you, I go and I look at your website and I look at your social media and I look at how you handle things. And, I know we all have bad days.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that we all have times where we are swamped or things happen. Like, for instance, with me, my computer went down. I know that happens, but how do you handle it after that? Do you apologize? Do you offer solutions? And until people, and I'm not going to just say that it's in the Black community. people in general. Until
Right.
you understand customer service and how interacting with people will help your business, then you'll always find yourself lacking and suffering. I think that's a good book. I'm glad that you wrote that, because a lot of people really do need to read it. And hopefully you'll get a little boost today with that book. So in addition to writing that, you're also on your journey writing in Christian fiction. So
Mm-hmm.
how did that come about?
Oh, wow. I've been writing Christian fiction for maybe about 15 years. I transitioned from secular work in 2001. I think that the older that I got and the closer that I got into in my faith, I had to start looking at things from different lenses. So that's really how I got involved in becoming a Christian writer.
What's your favorite Christian fiction piece that you've written?
Oh, wow. I would have to say Devil in Disguise, because I put so much into that. It took me about 2 years to actually write that book, starting and stopping, picking it back up again, making different changes, asking myself different questions. So I put so much into the book because there are so many different dynamics and themes that I deal with that I cover in the book. And because I wanted it to be as realistic as possible, but still be, show the characters of being people with integrity. So that would have to be my favorite piece, because it resonates so much even with me in certain things in my personal life.
I'm kind of glad that you said that, because when you said Devil in Disguise, it made me think of another topic that we have. So
Okay.
I want to talk about Brianna Brochu.
Uh-huh.
And so for those people who don't know who Brianna Brochu is, I'll give you a brief introduction or background on her. Now, she is the young lady that was terrorizing her roommate. She's a white female terrorizing her African-American roommate, Jazzy Rowe. And she was doing things like spitting in her coconut oil. She put moldy clam dip in her lotion. She was she admitted to doing these things. She admitted to rubbing a bloody tampon on her backpack, licking her plates, her fork, her spoon, doing these things out of spite. She also put her fecal matter on the young lady's toothbrush by rubbing it between her private area, in her anal area.
Mm-hmm.
Initially, she was charged with second-degree breach of peace and third-degree criminal mischief, but those are both misdemeanors. But then, after the uproar, as they spoke about, because it never came to pass, they spoke about charging her with intimidation based on bigotry, which is second-degree felony. My issue with this is that it was a hate crime. She was not charged with that. And she got off. She has not been charged with anything. She's no longer at the school because she was expelled after the uproar. She went on social media bragging about all of this, everything that she had done to this young lady. And she just got a slap on the wrist, because being expelled from school, you can get into another school. But
Right.
you got a slap on the wrist. You've exposed this young lady. She was ill and they did not know what was wrong with her.
Right.
So you've exposed this young lady and her immune system to your germs, to other germs, to potential diseases, and you were slowly poisoning her. But it could have killed her because they
Right.
did not know what was wrong, and all you got was a slap on the wrist saying, "I hate her," and I finally got rid of her. You just got a slap on the wrist. So, what are your thoughts?
Oh, wow. First of all, that's attempted murder in my eyes, because you purposely, first of all, you really don't even know if you have anything, and for you to place something as personal like that into your orifices, you're exposing, like you said, you're exposed. She was exposed to some bacteria, germs, or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't know, that could have been something that could have been fatal. That, to me, that's attempted murder, and it is a hate crime. I think it was Brianna's lawyer who said that, well, they were just two students who were, put in a room together, and they didn't like each other, and and it just went a little too far. That's past going too far when you're doing things like that. That's disgusting. And I really think that young lady needs to be psychologically evaluated, and she needs to be properly charged.
I agree. And the NAACP is not happy with it, and they are having a call to action now because of it. And I just really think it's unfair to Jazzy on more than one level. You made her sick. You're getting a slap on the wrist. And now this girl has to live with long-term damage because not only was she exposed to this young lady's bacteria, but she is exposed to a lifetime of mental distress because of that.
Right.
To know that someone can be so evil and attempt to kill you.
Right.
To do those types of things. And now other people know, she was brushing her teeth with this toothbrush that was exposed to that bacteria. She was eating off these plates that was exposed to that bacteria, those types of things. It's just evil all the way around to be able to even think of those things. I never would have thought of doing those things.
Right.
Awful. And then we always have those people who are, oh, she's a Christian girl. No, that's not Christian behavior. That's not Christian behavior.
Exactly.
So I don't know, I'm hoping that she's charged again because those charges were dropped. Something needs to happen. So let me ask you now, just kind of shifting gears a little bit. What are factors in your everyday life that serves as obstacles to you when you're writing? And how do you overcome them? And I'm thinking of this because this young lady now has an obstacle that she has to overcome. So what are your obstacles? And then on top of that, what advice would you offer Jazzy to overcome this obstacle that she's now facing?
I would say staying focused. I have so many different projects going on at once, ideas floating, that I have a challenge in just sitting down and completing that one thing at one time. Sometimes it hinders me from being able to do some of the things that I need to do. I get so bogged down with pressures of life that I'll just have those moments of not only just writer's block, but I just get into this space to where I just don't want to do anything. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to adult that day. I don't want to be mom. I don't want to be anybody. I just want to just be in that space. And there are times where I'm in that space and it'll be a little bit harder for me to bounce back than other times. And sometimes that can be a little dangerous in getting into that space and then saying, okay, I'm just going to just be in this space for a while and just deal with my feelings, my emotions, and then I'm just going to bounce back. But sometimes it's not that easy. And piece of advice that I would like to give her is to continue to persevere and to know and trust in who you are. Because when someone attacks you basically because of your race, your gender, or what have you, they're actually attacking who you are on the inside. And it can cause you to question who you are, am I a mistake? That someone would want to be so evil and hateful, to cause me harm just because of what I look like. Is this a mistake? And I really would I would love for her to understand and know, to just continue to just push forward. And Vanessa Bell Armstrong, she once sung this song and it says something on the inside that's so strong. And you have to know who you are, regardless of the mental distress that comes in certain situations. You have to still have that center, that center that's on the inside of you, of knowing who you are, because regardless of what people can say, what people can do, that's something that they can't take away from you if you just hold on to that. So that's something that I would love to share with her.
That's great advice. I'm thinking now about how you were influenced. Who influenced you? What was your biggest influence in life?
Oh, wow. There were so many. I would definitely have to say my grandmother. And I would say my grandmother because she was a person who persevered. She experienced so many hardships in life. And she was not the richest woman in the world, but she was the most influential. Everyone knew her. Um, she was, and I found these things out later in life, that, you know, she was a champion of rights, for civil rights, people having equal rights, having equal opportunities to do the things that they desired and were passionate enough to do. She was always a service leader. She was always there to serve others. And so, and even in serving, and I think that in the generation that we're living in now, service is kind of looked down upon as being weak, you know, that you're not being successful. You have to be on top. You have to be the boss. You have to be the one that's running everything. And an ultimate servant. And in that, I saw how powerful and influential that she was just because of her service. So I would definitely have to say my grandmother has really been an influence to me, to not only serve, but to persevere regardless of the circumstances and situations that you're in.
That is bringing to mind one of our topics, because you talked about her service and her being active in the community and civil rights. And it makes me think about how a lot of people, when it comes to voting, a lot of people say, well, my vote doesn't count. And so in one of our topics, in the Virginia Commonwealth House of Delegates, the Democrat won by one vote. And so it makes you think about how people who are active in the community, who are advocates of civil rights, who are always trying to get people to vote, who are always out there, the face of the community, and trying to tell you, yes, you have a voice and your voice counts. This is kind of like a reminder and kind of serves as a trophy almost, that your vote does count, because this person won by one vote.
Right, right.
So,
I wanted to speak to that, Carmen.
mhm.
We have to, our mentality is so, I don't even know the word to even really use on this podcast, but our mentality has disintegrated into this lull of, I can't, it doesn't matter. It's so negative. It's so negative that we talk ourselves out of being empowered. We talk ourselves out of being on the above and not beneath. We talk ourselves out of it because we are so full of negativity. And with this news here, this just shows, this just proves that that we are powerful. We are powerful, and if we tap into that power, we tap into our passion and our purpose, we can accomplish just about anything. And this, I mean, to see this, and even now, you know, people are even questioning this and, you know, saying, well, you know, they're trying to twist some of the facts around and saying, well, it wasn't necessarily that one particular vote, but the facts are there.
Right.
They're there, and our vote counts. And that's why, you know, there are certain powers that be, that they are working behind the scenes to even take that power away again, because we don't even realize how powerful our vote is. We really don't realize how powerful it is.
Yeah, she won by one vote. The vote count was 11,608 to 11,607. And initially, they thought that she lost by 10 votes. So when they did the recount, because it was so close, then they realized that she'd won by that one vote. So yes, one vote does count. Your votes count. And until people realize that, then yes, we'll always have that. As I get older and I look at things that have happened, things that people have died and fought for, it makes you look at the way that you live your life differently. Not saying that I view anyone wrong. I just know how I want to live my life. And so to see this, it means something, because we are living in a world where we're supposed to all be equal and we're supposed to all be free, and we're not.
Right.
I thought this was an interesting story, and I'm glad that we were able to touch on that. Now I want to go to something that's sad, because I want to give an update. I talked about this before in a previous podcast, and this is the Amtrak collision.
Right.
That happened in Washington. Now, some new details have emerged. 3 people have been reported killed and 100 injured. At the time that I initially reported, it was 77 injured, and they thought that there were casualties, but they were not sure of the number. But Don Anderson, who is the mayor of Lakewood, which is one of the cities along the train's route, has safety concerns that he expressed in 2013. The Amtrak, this particular route was supposed to shave off 10 minutes of travel time, and it has cost 3 people their lives. And then also you have to think about how it affected those people who were on that train.
Right.
So what do you think about that? What are your thoughts?
When I first heard about this, my first question in my mind was there a warning before that this ever happened? Was there a warning? Did someone, were there signs along the way that said, we need to check into this, we need to do safety checks? Had someone come and done some investigative work, and they had brought it to the attention of those that were in charge? And was it just ignored and, okay, we'll deal with that later? Was it pushed back because of budget cuts or whatever? Those were the type of questions that I began to ask when I first heard about it. And I was also reading in regards to this story that the question was that, why the brakes were not applied by the engineer. What was going on? There are talks allegedly that the engineer was distracted, I believe. So it's like, what was really going on for this crash to take place? Was it the same? Did it have anything to do with the tracks itself? Did it have anything to do with that particular route? Whatever, there are so many questions that need to be answered here, because this isn't just something that was just that just randomly happened. There were some things that took place that sent a domino effect that led to these people being injured and those that were even killed.
I think I read somewhere that they were also saying that the train was going too fast as well. And so
right.
that in itself is an issue, because if it was going too fast, and then like you say, if it was going too fast and the conductor was distracted,
right.
That's a lot going on. And then to add to that, to know that other people have expressed concerns about this route 4 years ago. Right.
Raising red flags, some covers, about to, be pulled off. And it's sad, Carmen, that it's coming at the expense of the citizens, the taxpayers, the people who pay money, to live in this city, and it's coming at their expense and at the expense of their families, because these people will be forever changed. They've lost loved ones, and those that were injured, they're going to be reliving this over and over again. And it's really sad that we don't, as in general, that we don't take the warning, we don't listen that when someone brings something to our attention, we need to address it then, even if we don't have the mechanics to actually do something on a major scale, but we need to still address it, because we don't, these kind of things, we're no longer living in a world where, okay, well, I would never think that would happen to me. Some of the craziest things are happening to people all over the world now. So it's, it behooves us to actually take heed when someone comes to us, because 2013, that was 4 years ago. So I'm pretty sure the amount of traffic that's coming back and forth daily on this route, that's a lot of wear and tear. That's a lot of wear and tear over the course of 4 years.
My heart goes out to the families, and I hope that there are some answers to some of these questions that we all have, because I'm sure that they're doing some thorough investigation on this. There were a lot of people who were concerned. The train was hanging off the overpass,
Yes.
So I do wish the best for all of those involved, and I pray for the families of those who lost loved ones. So I'm at a question that I always ask everyone. And normally I would say, what does literary success look like to you? Because you've written books, but because you have more than just books, you have businesses. What does success look like to you?
Well, being able to fulfill your dreams, whatever that may be, being satisfied in your purpose, that when you lock down on what your purpose is, you understand why you're here, what you're supposed to be doing. To me, that's success. And when you're operating in that, that's success to me. It's not always about the dollars and the cents and the recognition, but knowing that when the lights are off, when the paparazzi is gone, when all the friends have gone their way, and you still have this satisfaction and this peace, that's success.
I like to hear how everybody views success, because ultimately everyone has the same thought process.
Mm-hmm.
But the way that you word it is different. And so I love that. I love how everyone answers that question. Okay, so now we're at the time where we find out what is in the honey pot. And what this means is I go in and I find something, some type of music, something creative that I like to introduce to people who are not yet familiar with it. So today, we're going to pull out Miss Tiffany Evans, who has a new song out called Nothing Else for Christmas. Now, for those of you who don't remember who she is, she was the young lady that played in Tyler Perry's movie Diary of a Mad Black Woman. She was the daughter. Mm-hmm. She came out with a song entitled Promise Ring. She got married early. I think she was 19. And then in 2009, she called out the music industry for Satan worship and influence.
Wow.
So she's very strong in her Christian beliefs. So she always talks about that. And I wanted to shine a spotlight on her because she now has a new album that will be coming out soon. But this is her new single, Nothing Else for Christmas. So now that I've introduced that, my next question is, what's on your music playlist?
What am I listening to? I'm listening to Tamla Mann's latest album, One Way. I am in love with Change Me, and I love how she took the twist of Tremaine Hawkins, and so that's been on repeat for me.
Okay, so now do you have, or what are your last words for our listeners and viewers today?
Last words. I guess I would have to say that find your voice and share it. Find your voice and share it with the world. I'm a big believer in that whatever that you're meant to do, there's somebody who needs it. So find your voice and share it.
So tell people where they can find you on social media. And do you have a website? If you have a website, provide that information.
Okay. I can be found on Facebook at author Tonya Franklin. And I'm also on Instagram, booksbyTonya. And you can find me on the web at www.tonyadfranklin.com.
Great. So I will end with today's Carmenism, and that is, stepping in faith is walking away from fear. Fear paralyzes you and keeps you from your dreams, living, and the blessings God has for you. You can't live in fear, but you can step in faith. Thank you, Tonya, for joining today's show. We appreciate having you. We're so glad that you were able to give us some of your time today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm glad you were able to come on. I want to thank our audience for taking the time to listen to the Honey Pot Podcast. I'm your host, Carmen Hendricks. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast and like us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram using the handle at Honeypot Podcast. You can also find me at carmenhendricks.com. That does it for today's podcast. I'm putting the lid back on the pot. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.